The Greek War of Independence, also known as the Greek Revolution or the Greek Revolution of 1821, was a successful war of independence by Greek revolutionaries against the Ottoman Empire between 1821 and 1829. Also known as the Greek Revolution or the Greek Revolution of 1821, was a successful war of independence by Greek revolutionaries against the Ottoman Empire between 1821 and 1829. In 1826, the Greeks were assisted by the British Empire, Kingdom of France, and the Russian Empire, while the Ottomans were aided by their North African vassals, particularly the Eyalet of Egypt. The war led to the formation of modern Greece, which would be expanded to its modern size in later years. The revolution is celebrated by Greeks around the world as Independence Day on the 25th of March every year. The ocean, when it is near, is always a society's biggest asset. From the ocean, the Navy strikes at your enemies with vicious precision and power. From the ocean, your pioneers sail away to conquer other lands and reap their spoils. From the ocean, your people gain their lifeblood in the fish that swim to and fro. From the ocean, you get a sense of tranquility that comes only with the taste of salt on a sea breeze. One of our most studied and continually emulated societies, ancient Greece, grew to such great power and prestige thanks to its strong connections with the ocean.
Contrary to popular opinion, there never was a country called Greece or Hellas until the Revolution of 1821, when rebellion against the Ottoman Empire gave birth to Hellas. Hellenic-speaking people had a national homeland for the first time in history.
In 1821, the land that was known as Greece is controlled by the Turks, except for the Ionian Islands, which has been occupied by the Venetians, then the French, and in 1815 by the British. The rebellion of the Greeks actually begins in Moldavia when an army of 4,500 Hellenes led by General Alexander Ypsilantis, a Phanariot from the so-named district of Istanbul.
On the island of Chios, 25,000 Greeks are killed, while in the Peloponnesos the Greeks kill 15,000 of the 40,000 Turks living there. It would be unfair to overlook Ali Pasha and the fact that the insurrection of 1821 was actually something of an Albanian affair, and that the Chios massacre was a consequence of this. The Chiotes had enormous privileges under the Ottomans, even to the point of dominating the Ottoman Admiralty. It was the role of the Chios navy in the revolt that was seen as an act of treason by the Turks.
March 13, 1821, 12 days before the official beginning of the War of Independence, the first revolutionary flag was actually raised on the island of Spetses by Laskarina Bubulina, though there were several revolutionary flags which could lay claim to being the first, including Hydra, twice. Widowed with 7 children but extremely rich, she owned several ships. On April 3rd, Spetses revolted, followed by the islands of Hydra and Sara, with a total of over 300 ships between them. Bubulina and her fleet of 8 ships sailed to Naflion and took part in the siege of the impregnable fortress. There, her later attack on Monemvasia managed to capture that fortress. She took part in the blockade of Pylos and brought supplies to the revolutionaries by sea. Bubulina became a national hero. Provisional government, electing the Phanariot Alexandros Mavrocordatos president. On April 26, the Greeks attack Athens, and the Turks of the city are forced to flee to the Acropolis. They are rescued in August by Turkish troops but finally surrender in June of 1822. By mid-July, about half had been massacred, others died of disease, and over the next months the rest 550 were evacuated by foreign diplomats. In the meantime, the Greeks in the Peloponnesos, or the Morea as it was called, are fighting amongst themselves. In European cities, intellectuals and poets like Lord Byron embrace the Greek cause and sway public opinion.
The Greek struggle is interpreted by many Europeans simplistically and romantically as a battle between the ideals of the ancient Greeks against the ruthless Turks who had been occupying and suppressing the descendants of Pericles, Socrates and Plato. Many, including Lord Byron, volunteer to fight and become leaders and heroes of the revolution. Known as the Philhellenes, friends of the Greeks, some sing the praises of the modern Greeks, but many are completely disillusioned by the pettiness and greed of the Greek cleft leaders who seem to just want glory and riches. Though some of these warlords are elevated to the role of saviors and heroes in the national mythology, the reality is that many of them were just pirates and thieves looking out for their own self-interest. On the other hand, the motives of the Europeans is just as suspect, and the plan for Greece was actually to be a sort of colony of Great Britain or several colonies, since the last thing in the world they wanted was every national group on the continent being inspired by events in Greece and trying to start their own country too. But as history so often shows us, once you get the engine of revolution started, you can't really control where it takes you. In 1823, Lord Byron arrives in Missolonghi to take part in the resistance there, but dies 3 months later, not as romantically as he would have liked, but by disease. In 1826, the Peloponnesos is back in Turkish hands, and Athens is one of only a few cities controlled by the Greeks. When the Turkish army returns, a major battle takes place, and on June 5th, the Acropolis is surrendered. Among the 1,500 Greek dead are 22 of the 26 Philhellenes. By 1827, the Turks have all of Greece with the exception of Nafplion and a few islands.
George Gordon, or Lord Byron, one of the first and best-known Philhellenes, actively participated in battles in Greece's War of Independence, eventually losing his life in Missolonghi on April 19, 1824. Born in 1788, Gordon, who had the title of Lord Byron, became the leading figure of British Romanticism at the beginning of the 19th century. He lived a full life in every aspect and died young for a cause he was passionate about, which turned him into greater romantic legend than he had been while a living poet, young, handsome and aristocratic. Much of Greece's art was inspired by its people's affinity for the sea, upon pots and clay. And in mosaics like the one displayed, they transcribed images of ships, fish, and Poseidon, Greek god of the sea, a great deal of ancient Greece's mythology, from which its temples and artworks were based, centers around the sea. Just one of these myths states that from the ocean waves Poseidon created the horse, while another relates that Greek goddess of love and beauty. Aphrodite was born from sea foam when the genitals of Ouranos fell to earth. Slightly gross details aside, be they directly related to the sea, like Poseidon, or only created from it like Aphrodite and the horse, many of ancient Greece's objects of greatest reverence and inspiration lead back to the surf. Much of this art was brought to other lands, packed amongst Grecian staples like olives and wine. Speaking of which, the export of those staples and import of others was made possible for the Greeks because of their access to the sea.